by the name Michael, who once said something that I want us to also think about this morning, that it is bad news that time flies, but it is good news that you are the pilot. I'll repeat. It is bad news that time flies, but it is good news that you are the pilot. Now, if you look at it critically, you'll realize that we have a lot to do on how we use our time. Time is a gift given unto us by God, and God has given us this gift equally, and the difference that will be seen in our success and our efficiency depend on how we manage our time. We are going to consider the book of 2 Samuel chapter 11. We are going to look at some few lessons. It's a familiar story that I know most of us, if not all, may know about. But there are some few things that I want us to draw from that story that will help us concerning time management. 2 Samuel chapter 11 is a story about King David. Another character in that story is about Bathsheba, who was Uriah's wife. And then there is also Joab that is also mentioned there. Now the story begins by a narration of, it was a time when the kings were supposed to be in war. Had in the palace was shifted from what he was doing to Bathsheba. And then David calls people, or called his servants, to inquire who this lady was. If you continue down in the story, you'll realize that David now, after being told who Bathsheba was, he sends for her, and she's brought, and he commits sin, and a lot of things happen thereafter. I am not so sure whether David had a plan for his day that day. And if he had any, I don't know what happened to all that he had planned to do. Because the story that is given unto us is that his plan was seriously drifted from that afternoon up to a later time that is not so clear from the scriptures. Now, one thing that I want us to get from the story of David is that most of the sin that we commit in this world is because of poor time management. You realize that a small thing may drift your attention, and before you realize, you have gone too far and you have wasted over 6 hours of the day, and you have forgotten about what you are supposed to do, not because you didn't plan, but because maybe you did not focus on your plan. We are going to look at factors for effective time management. And I want you to think about the story of David and Bathsheba. And David was not just any other man, but this was a king of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem was not just any other nation, but this was the nation that was called by the name of the living God. So David was a man that was really, really esteemed in the surrounding because of the victories that God would give them. But at this point, something went wrong in the life of David. And so if we are not careful, also as children of God, if we do not take this issue of time seriously, then we realize that a lot of things may change in our space and life that we may not recover after some time. Now, factors, we'll look at three main factors that we need really to think about when we talk about time management. And the first one is be organized. Most of us are not organized. But if we look at God who created us, every evidence from the Bible, from the book of Genesis, proves to us that our God is a very organized God. Now, if we are created in the image and likeness of God, I think that is the book of Ecclesiastes that says that God made man simple, but we have complicated ourselves. And in the midst of our complication, we have realized that most of us are not organized. And if we are organized, then we can easily be diverted by the things that happen around us. Now, how do we ensure that we are organized? The first one is avoid keeping a stack of files and heap of papers at your workstation. Now, this may be applicable to this other side of life, but also on the side of students. You realize that you may have books from class 6. You are in class 8, And all of them are in your locker. For class 6 are mixed with for class 5 and are also mixed for class 3. Some of them you don't even use, you don't even touch them, but they're heaped there, and their work is just to discourage you that I have a lot to do and yet you have nothing to do with them. So be very careful about the things that may be heaped on your desk, and if they are important, then manage them well so that they don't become like a trash in front of you. Now, another thing that we need to do is to file our things properly. Have folders. Like, for example, for students in high school, you have different subjects. Now, you have a file, and this file, you have papers for chemistry, for physics, for maths. So like for first term, chemistry is up, then below it is math, then when you go back CRE, then you continue, find chemistry. So when you come that you want to study, you will take like 30 minutes for you to get to find what you wanted to study. But if you do your filing well, you'll realize that you'll, for example, you have one single file. You don't have to have a file for each and every subject. You have one single file, then there is a column for chemistry, then maybe there is a paper that you have written that now we are moving to physics. Then when you are done with physics, you put another one tag to show that now it's maybe mathematics, so that when you want to begin your study, you go directly to the file or to that which you need, which will make your work easier and will help you to consume less time and will show that you are a bit organized. Then another thing that we need to do is that when you are planning yourself or when you are keeping your things, be orderly in how you keep your things, so that when you are trying to trace your documents, you find it very easy, because there are people who are used to forgetting. You can't just remember where you kept something. So if you know that in my locker, this is how I've partitioned my locker, my books, my course books at this side, my revision books at this side, my files are on the rear end, then it will be very easy for you that when you want to pick something from your course book, you know that these textbooks are all course book, so I just pick chemistry and I begin my studies. If I want a revision book, you know that it is this side, I pick my golden tips, and then I begin my revision. And the same is applicable even to adults. Now, number 2 is do not misuse time. You find that most of us misuse time, and you may not realize that this is happening until something that you are supposed to achieve has not been achieved. For example, you are at your desk, and then somebody comes. You are doing something, maybe on your laptop, and then somebody comes with a gossip, and then you concentrate on this gossip for the next 3 hours until tea break, and then you break with this friend and you tell them, this one cannot be continued later. We have to continue while we go for tea break, only to realize that it is 2 o'clock, you have very few hours to go home, and there is completely nothing that you have achieved because of misuse of time. So things like loitering and gossip, they take much of our time, and if we do not really think about them, then we'll realize that we do not manage our time well, because they will waste our time. Like even in a classroom setup, the teacher, maybe for maths, has not come, and you have how many hours for a lesson? 2 hours, if maybe things have not changed. So you've heard that maybe the teacher is sick, is not coming to class. So at this time, you are supposed to revise. Then since the teacher is not in, you have this friend who is so much into talks and gossip. Then he comes and then you begin a story, only to realize that you're seeing the chemistry teacher walking in because 2 hours has elapsed without you noticing, just because you did not take good care of your time. Another thing about misuse of time is concentrate on your work and finish assignments on time. Most of us are easily diverted. You begin to do something, and then in the middle of it, you get something else to do, you stop that one. You say that, I think I have 3 days before the time to submit this assignment, so let me just have a nap, I will do it. So you put your head on the desk, you sleep kidogo. And then when it is time to submit, you realize that kumbe this work needed some more time than I had thought. So I only have 1 hour for the deadline, and this work requires 4 hours. Then what will happen? You will begin to be stressed. and you'll end up that you're producing something that is substandard. So it is important that you concentrate on your work and finish your assignments on time. And then the third one is be focused. Be focused. Most of us are easily diverted. And just like David, he was walking at the rooftop of his palace. And when David was diverted by the presence of Uriah's wife who was taking a bath, somebody once said that looking or seeing is not sin. But taking your time or looking twice or concentrating on what you have seen is what may take you to the other extreme. Just like David did. He saw, but instead of ignoring what he saw, he concentrated on what he saw, and much of his time was wasted and a lot of things happened thereafter. So it is important that we ensure that we are not easily diverted. Get to know what diverts you and find a way of running away from it to ensure that you are focused on a different an activity that you had planned. Remember, on Monday we talked about planning. That which you had planned to do for the day, put your focus on it to ensure that you achieve the best out of it. And most of us are jacks of all trades. You can do anything, anytime, anywhere. Such that you are concentrating on something, then someone comes with something, you want to attend to that. So by the end of the day, you attend to people's emergencies and not the things that you had planned to do. You behave like a savior to everyone. Someone tells you that, you see now, I don't know what is happening with my computer. You're already there sorting out that problem. Now another one comes and tells you, I had a problem with my wife at night. You are already there doing some counseling. Someone comes to you and tells you, I don't feel well, I have some headache. You're already there taking care of that. And at the end of the day, you realize that you are handling other people's emergencies, and that which you had planned to do for the day, you have not achieved because you are not focused. Then finally, let's look at the few important facts. Think about 4 that we need to note about time management. Now, the first one is your time is your life. Your time